Hello, America. I want to talk to you about the border here for a sec, because something's going on with the border. Texas came out and said, we're going to take the National Guard and call them for duty, and we're going to stop this invasion at our border. Now, everybody's upset from the Democratic side. Oh, you can't do that. You know, that's the job of the government. But the Constitution clearly says it is the job of the federal government unless a governor declares an invasion and the government is not doing anything about it, then he can call out his own National Guard and secure the border. And now, so far, there's 25 states that are signed on for this, but the administration doesn't like it. We don't know what's coming next, but I will tell you that I truly believe, because I've talked to Ken Paxton so many times in the past about this, this is a maneuver to get it to the Supreme Court. So the war, if you will, is fought in the Supreme Court, not on our border. But I have no idea what comes next, because the people in Washington seem to be crazy. But I don't want you to think that you're not in charge. Everything is beginning to fall apart. You've got the economy falling apart. It doesn't work. All the conspiracy theories, January 6th, oh, it's a conspiracy theory to think that anybody was, doing something to set those people up. Really? That's falling apart. How about the pipe bomber? Have you heard the news this week from Thomas Massie? Oh, my gosh. There's clearly something going on. Our border is an absolute mess. World Health Organization. We came out today and found out that there were memos that right at the beginning of the Pfizer jab, there were people in the FDA that said, we can't release this. You have to say myocarditis is a possible after effect, because it could happen. And they didn't want to spook the American people. Now how many people are dying? All of these narratives are completely coming apart. But we're at a crossroads, and I'm not sure if people understand who we're actually fighting. So let me show you what's really going on. First, let me just play a couple of pieces of audio here that we have from the week. This is Kamala Harris and what she's worried about that Donald Trump will do.
November of 2024, binary. And on the other side, you've got someone who has said that if he were back in office, he would weaponize the Department of Justice. Someone who has said that they will go after their political enemies. So let's be really clear about what's at stake. And then, yes, of course, there is then a desire that let's get out there, because we can't lose this democracy. We can't.
I can't. I mean, first of all, I'm not surprised that was Katie Couric on the other end of that, who is a complete and total fraud and shill for the left. So you have Kamala Harris saying that he'll weaponize. Wait. What about the pro-life people? What about the January 6th people? No, he's saying he'd clean it out, and we would actually seek honest, fair justice. We're not gonna solve any old, well, in 1403, this guy really spit on my family and I want some justice because I've been oppressed ever since. No, real oppression exists. It exists today. That's what justice is trying to balance out there. But justice must be blind. So they're worried about President Trump weaponizing the DOJ. Now, let's talk about the border. President Biden came out today and said he's never said that the border was secure. He has been saying the same thing for 10 years, the border's not secure. Well, were you aware that all of your surrogates were saying the border was secure? Watch.
You're confident this border's secure?
We have a secure border, in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
That's good.
The border is closed. The border is secure.
No doubt about it. Our border is secure.
The border remains closed. It is not open. We are turning away the majority of adults.
The removal of Title 42 does not mean the border is open. Anyone who suggests otherwise is simply doing the work of these smugglers.
I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open.
There certainly is not an open border. We are continuing to employ our immigration proceedings and process and restrictions at the border.
People who cross our border unlawfully and without a legal basis to remain will be promptly processed and removed.
The border is secure.
The fact that the
Comedy.
removal of Title 42 is happening in just a day or two doesn't mean that the border is open. It just doesn't mean that.
The border is secure.
And do you feel that the border is secure, sir?
No, it's not. I haven't believed it for the last 10 years. And I've said it for the last 10 years.
Do you believe your
Give me the money.
Yeah. Do you believe your policies have enabled any of this crisis at the border that you're rattling down?
I've asked for it.
Okay, hang on just a second. So he says, no, I've never said that. And then I don't know if this was a senior moment or what. Maybe he was talking to a Chinese reporter, and he was like, give me the money. And then he realized, oh, no, we're talking about the border. Or he was saying that I just need millions more for the border. But neither of those work, because the border was the most secure that it had been until the day he was elected. And now all of us know it. In fact, the people in San Diego know it. Watch what happens in La Jolla, California. You're going to see a boat. Go ahead and play it. Let me explain it. You see that little black dot there? That's a boat. That's one of those rubber rafts that like our Navy SEALs use. It's a rubber raft coming in from God knows where. And it's full of men. And they're all dressed in black, and they're carrying black bags. Now, the people are just filming it. They're like, wow, I can't believe I'm seeing an invasion of our country. Let's film it, because I can't do anything about it, because I'll be arrested. So now, somebody did call the police. Here come the police, but there come the guys all dressed in black, and they run into the neighborhoods, and we don't know who they are. Wow, our border is secure indeed. In fact, it's so secure that let me show you where we're putting some of these non-existent illegal aliens up. This is the Boston airport, where it's lovely. They're being treated like with dignity. You know, here we're just letting them sleep on the floor at the airport. God bless. Who's paying for their trips to Boston, to the airport? Most likely we are, through our tax dollars. The government is, the governor of Texas gets accused of, he's sending people all over the country. Yeah, like 200 buses. They're loading up airplanes of illegal immigrants. I'm sure you have been to an airport where you have seen somebody not required to show their ID because they don't have any. Not show anything. You got to take your shoes off. They got to grab you by the nuts and shove you on the plane, where you don't get any nuts unless you pay for it. But they're fine. They can just go on, and it's wonderful. Even John Fetterman understands this is a problem. Watch.
I honestly don't understand why it's controversial to say we need a secure border. I've been very clear. In fact, that was weaponized against me as Republicans in my race, that I'm very much a strong supporter of immigration. And, my wife's family, that's the Oregon story about that. And I think two things can be true at the same time. You can be very supportive of immigration, but we also need to have a secure border. And I think about immigration as we want to provide the American dream for any migrant. But it seems very difficult when you have 300,000 people showing up encountered at our border to do that. And I think we need to do a reset, and we have to work together and develop a new comprehensive solution to that.
Nah, don't overcomplicate it. It's really simple. We had it under control. You just enforce the laws. We don't need any new congressional package or anything else. You just enforce the laws. By the time Joe Biden either is sworn in or Trump becomes 47, we will have 10 million people who have crossed the border. People are upset. They want to go down. The Federal government now is talking about nationalizing the Texas National Guard, yada, yada, yada. Let me tell you what's really going on. And I don't have this from the horse's mouth. I hope to have it on the show from Ken Paxton. He's the Attorney General. But I've talked to Ken Paxton on the air so many times. He's the Attorney General of the state of Texas. I know how the state of Texas fights. Why? Well, because I know the governor was a judge. He's an attorney, he's a constitutionalist. Ken Paxton, he's an attorney and a very good one. And Texas, between the two of them, have done more lawsuits against Biden than I think anybody else in any other state. And I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of lawsuits against Joe Biden and the administration, and they keep losing them over and over again. Instead of having a fight on the streets, it's better to have the fight in the court. So they didn't make this case with the razor wire because that's not what they were saying. They were saying, can the feds cut the wire? It was a very simple question. Can they cut the razor wire? Can they clean up the border? The answer was yes, they can. But there was no slap on the wrist for Texas. There was no statement that said Texas can't put up the razor wire. So this is an entirely different story than nationalizing or taking our National Guard here in Texas and saying that we want to have the National Guard secure the border. The feds can be there. God bless you. God bless you. And you can do whatever you want. You're cutting the wire. We're laying some more wire down. And when people come through, we'll stop them. We'll stop them. Now, that is going to cause a constitutional crisis. What Greg Abbott and Paxton have done is push this right to the Supreme Court. It's in the Constitution. If the government doesn't secure the border and there's an invasion, the governor of any state can say this is an invasion and declare their National Guard to come out to secure it. 25 states now signed up for that. So I want you to know we are so close to winning on so many things, and we have the election coming up in November, that everybody just got to be cool. Just be cool. And that's going to get harder and harder because most people don't actually know what they're fighting against. And let me show you on the chalkboard. Most people, when I first started tracking all of this after 2011 and then to 2008, I always thought we were fighting against the Marxists, these old 1960s revolutionaries who now infiltrated our education and our government and were doing all kinds of things that only Marxists were doing. And I talked to you about that on Fox over and over again. These are Marxists. Look at this Marxist. Look at this Marxist. The Marxists are nothing more than, they're useful idiots. That's what they are. They're useful idiots. They think they're going to be in charge. They're not going to be in charge. The rest of us think that Democrats and Republicans, that's what the real fight is about. Now, Republicans are a little closer to the truth because they say you have the rhinos, and the rhinos are really Democrats, okay? But that's not exactly right. So what is actually happening? Because the Republicans, the Democrats, the revolutionists, the Marxists, we're all useful idiots. They're keeping us fighting. Now, let me show you. Here's the goal. The goal is, in the 1950s, the goal is to have educated workers. We had cheap energy and we had educated workers. And so we were sending people to college, especially after World War II, like never before. And in fact, it was very unusual for people to go to college outside of their home region or their home area. We weren't going and sending people all across the country and the world. What was happening was people would go to college and they would have their high school sweetheart and they would marry their high school sweetheart, and there was a balance of the elite and the non-elite, okay? Well, that broke down. We don't have that anymore. So now husband meets wife at university. They both have a college degree. They now have the same political ideals. And that leaves the educated workers kind of behind if they don't have the elite education. I'll explain that here in a second. What happened is education became our God, not our goal. You had to have that piece of paper. You had to have it or you couldn't get a job. Your life was over. You didn't go there. You can't do anything. That's untrue. The universities churned out scientists, industrial leaders, educators, political leaders, and tech, except tech was kind of off on its own space because a lot of the tech people said, I'm not going. But they hang out with all of these people and they hire a lot of people that are eggheads. So you have the elites and the super elites. Now, this is from a poll that was just taken and released, and it's fascinating. The elites are people that make $150,000 a year and have at least one post-graduation degree. So you have, a master's in something, or you have a doctorate. You have at least one postgraduate degree. The super elites are the same, except they've gone to Harvard or Yale or any of the Ivy Leagues. That's the only difference between the elites and the super elites. So they were asked some questions along with the worker, you. If you didn't go to Yale or Harvard, make $150,000 a year, you didn't get at least one postgraduate degree, then you were asked the same questions. And they were questions of, should we be rationing gas? Should we be rationing energy? Should we be rationing food? Should we restrict meat, cars, air travel? And do Americans have too many freedoms? Here's what they found. 70 to 90% of the elites and the super elites were always up in the 80s and 90s, 70 to 90% say yes to all of those. When they asked you, 16 to 20% of the non-elites said, yeah, we should do this. So you've already solved, the elites have. They've already solved, we're getting rid of gas. And in fact, if we're going to put everybody on electricity, not even natural gas, and we're going to probably have to ration that at some point, but that's fine. Oh, and food, we have to redesign the whole food industry from seed to fork. And people are not going to eat meat anymore. They're not going to have cars. If they want frivolous air travel for like a vacation, no non-essential air travel. And they have too many freedoms, and the government knows best. That's what they actually believe. They're not Marxists. Why? Because they're in science and industry, education. They're leaders of countries and companies. They're designing a whole new world, one where migration plays a really big role. Why? I'll get there here in a second. So, you are sitting out here all by yourself and you don't agree with anything. Does it ever feel like, why doesn't somebody talk to us about this? They don't need you. And you're becoming even less important. But in 2008, what was one of the first advisors that Barack Obama brought into the White House? It was Cass Sunstein. You know who he is? He is the author of the book Nudge. He's a behavioral scientist. He studies how you get people to do things that you want them to do without them knowing you're doing it to them. They nudge. And I've told you for years, first comes nudge, then comes what? Shove. And then if it doesn't stop there, if you still won't do what they say, it ends in shoot. Well, we were at Nudge back in the early 2000s. We're in shove, and I'm afraid we're getting closer and closer to shoot. Why? Because you will not comply. You don't understand, and so you become dangerous to the elite and to their plans. So now they've gone from behavioral scientists to now we have just discovered that with Five Eyes, that's the collective agencies all around the world that do intelligence, they are spying on you in a public-private partnership with our intelligence agencies. They have been turned on you. And not because they think you're really a terrorist. You are a terrorist to them because they believe all these things. And they can get rich off of all of these things. They'll be the rancher, you'll be the cattle. So they had behavioral science, but that wasn't enough. Now with AI, we've entered the era of cognitive security, where they'll know exactly, because of AI, what you think, who you talk to, and how to change your mind. That is currently being done by the elites in this administration, in this government, and governments all around the Western world. I shouldn't say that. Let's not leave China out of that. Let's talk about AI for just a second. It's going to be smarter than any human on the planet that has ever lived. It will be everywhere. It will watch everything. They, in their arrogance, think they can build this tower to the sky, which will make them gods. But I have a great fear that it doesn't always end the way arrogant people think it ends. But I was just talking to somebody about energy the other day, and I was talking to these people that are way smarter than I am. It was a room full of a bunch of energy experts, and I learned a lot. And one that was that by 2027, AI, just the number crunching for AI, will take 25% of our energy. I don't know if you know this, but we're already close to rolling blackouts. And by the way, you're not seeing it yet, but God help us if we can't turn this around in the next election, because 2025 is the year we really start to feel the impact, and we can go to ration gas and energy. 25% just because of AI. And they're still pushing electric cars, which they know we cannot power. Why? Because when this all happens, wherever you are is where you will remain. Because you're dangerous. And they know it. So you're dangerous. And, worried about, the weaponizing of the DOJ and FBI. Well, isn't that what happened on January 6th? Isn't that what happened to the pro-life people? Why are they doing these things? Why are they saying, if you're against the border, you're a terrorist, you're a dangerous, evil MAGA person? Why are people like me, who you check my record against the record of anybody in the Biden administration, who is telling the truth? I don't need to beat my own chest. You see it now. Was ESG a conspiracy theory? Was the World Economic Forum a conspiracy theory? Is CBDC a conspiracy theory? Is inflation a conspiracy theory? Is open borders and terrorists coming across our country a conspiracy theory? You answer. I mean, I've got 100 of these things where they said, you got to be silenced, you got to be stopped, you're part of the problem, that have all turned out to be right. So why are people like me, and there's a ton of us, that are just trying to find the truth, why are we silenced? For the same reason you are being frightened. And here's what's crazy. They're not only trying to frighten us, but they also need to frighten the Democrats. They have to shut them down from thinking. So all they see is, Hitler is coming. He's going to make a dictatorship. I got news for you. If Donald Trump tried to become a dictator, half of the country that didn't vote for him, and probably at least a third of those who did, would stand up and say, no, thank you. But you don't see what's actually happening here. The left doesn't see it. The Marxists think it's great. But the Democrats don't see it because they're so freaked out. They have them scared. They have you scared. So you become a useful idiot. and they hope that you will go and do something crazy. We are entering the most dangerous phase of this because you are winning. You are winning. They are terrified of you. You don't believe me? Go watch the WEF. Watch it from 2 years ago to this year. They are terrified, and they're all about cognitive security, making sure that you don't find out the truth until it's too late. But something is happening that the behavioral scientists should have seen coming. And you're seeing it in the split between men and women. They say there's no difference between the sexes, but there is, no matter how much they deny it. Women are nurturers. Not always, but generally speaking. They're the mothers. The nurturing side comes out. The kindness, they're nurses. Not all the time, but generally speaking, they have the nursing kind of spirit. Guys are protectors. Not always, but generally speaking. We are the hunters, the gatherers, the ones who are, ugh, I gotta protect family. And the women are the ones who nurture. So guys have this ability built into them, no matter what's going on, to sometimes be able to sense and feel something's wrong. I gotta, go out in front of the cave and look, something not right. Me got, you? Oh, no, I just... Both of them are important. Not to diminish either side or call either side crazy or wrong. We work best when we come together. But have you seen the polls of young men and young women? Women are more radical than ever before. They're into all of this. You know, there are 180,000 different genders, and I'm going to call you a bush because you tell me you're a mulberry bush. They're into all of that. Why? It's their nature. Where are the young guys, the generation coming up? Where are they? They're more conservative than me. So you want to know why they are making men, and particularly white men, but all men into danger if they don't agree that I can have a baby? Why? Because we are becoming, the younger generation is becoming a conservative generation, more conservative than I think Reagan, more conservative than me. They're very conservative. The women are not. The boys are. Why? Because in the end, when you boil it all down, we are all cavemen, or we have at least millions of years of going from caveman to where we are here, that it's all in our DNA. That's why they have to silence men. They have to defang men. They have to get them so they stand around and go, I know wrong, but I want to be with wife. Being an alpha male is not being the toughest guy on the block. Being an alpha male is one who will stand up and first do right, do no wrong, protect, defend, warn. Alpha male is not the guy who's the biggest, toughest bully on the block. And if that's the way you define alpha male, then nobody's ever accusing me of being an alpha male, but I don't ever want to be around alpha males. Those are bullies. I just wanted to give you some hope. Recognize who you are. Recognize the time you live in. Recognize that you were chosen to live at this time in this place. Recognize your strength. Recognize that while they might want to destroy, and they are pushing you, nudge, nudge, shove, shove, they want you to strike out. If you know that, and you know their plan, and you have things that are coming up, like Supreme Court cases on the border, and governors and others that are standing up, You let the entire thing play out, and you just stand there knowingly, oh, is that what you think of us? Yeah, too bad. I probably won't be dating for a little while until this insanity stops, but that's okay. I'm going to protect the rights, not just for me, but for you and her and her and her and all of our children, because that's what a real alpha male does. Good night.